For most of human history, nobody ever went on a date. There were no restaurants, no profiles, no carefully timed text messages, and no agonizing over how long to wait before replying. People still found partners. They just didn't do it this way. Your options were shaped by something much simpler: who lived nearby, who your family knew, and who your community considered acceptable. Social behavior doesn't fossilize, so nobody knows exactly how a prehistoric first date went. But it almost certainly wasn't candlelit, can hunt, knows fire, still has most teeth. Real prehistoric relationships were almost certainly more complicated than that joke suggests. Different communities likely organized partnership in very different ways, shaped by kinship, proximity, and survival. There was no single universal system, just small groups of people figuring it out, one campfire at a time. That simplicity didn't last. As property, inheritance, and descent became more important in many societies, households gained stronger incentives to regulate who their members married. By the end of this video, that decision will belong to an app, possibly to an algorithm you've never met, maybe, eventually, to an AI acting on your behalf. So let's find out how we got from whoever lives nearby to whoever the algorithm shows you first. Once humans had property worth protecting, marriage became one of the ways to protect it. In Mesopotamia, surviving records show marriages shaped by household contracts, property arrangements, and legal obligations between families. In Egypt, the household and property stakes were just as real. But the evidence that survives best isn't legal contracts, it's poetry. That doesn't mean every marriage was a cold transaction between two fathers shaking hands over a goat. It means the stakes had changed. A marriage wasn't just a relationship anymore. It was a liability, an asset, and occasionally a diplomatic maneuver. Once humans invented property, romance acquired paperwork. And yet somehow, people still felt things. Surviving ancient Egyptian poetry is full of longing, obsession, and the kind of desperate affection that sounds suspiciously modern. Contracts didn't erase feelings, they just made feelings fill out a form first. Marriage had become a household decision with legal weight behind it. Some societies were about to take that idea even further and put it directly into law. In classical Athens, a woman's male guardian normally held the decisive legal role in arranging her marriage. This wasn't a suggestion, a tradition, or a strongly worded family opinion. It was the legal mechanism itself. In Rome, the head of the household, the paterfamilias, held unusually broad formal authority over the people under his roof, marriage included. That authority varied depending on legal status and circumstance, but the underlying pattern was consistent. The household usually held far more formal power over the decision than the couple did. Marriage wasn't a personal decision. It was a household decision that happened to involve two people. This is worth sitting with for a second, because it's easy to imagine ancient romance as a smaller version of modern dating. It wasn't. There was no dating. There was negotiation, conducted by people who weren't going to be in the marriage. Athens and Rome solved the who decides problem with law and guardianship. Other civilizations, thousands of miles away, solved the exact same problem completely differently. If Athens outsourced the decision to a legal guardian, other cultures outsourced it to something even harder to argue with: fate. In some Indian literary and epic traditions, Swayamvara describes a scene where a woman selects a husband from among assembled suitors. It shows up prominently in stories and elite or royal contexts, not as the everyday experience of most women, but as a powerful cultural ideal about choice existing somewhere, even if only in legend. Traditional Chinese matchmaking took a very different approach: formal family negotiation, often involving professional matchmakers, and the comparison of birth information between the two families. It was systematic, deliberate, and treated compatibility as something that could actually be checked. And running alongside that tradition is one of the most enduring pieces of East Asian folklore: the red thread of fate. The idea that destined partners are connected by an invisible thread from birth. It's a beautiful image. It is not, as far as anyone has ever verified, an actual historical matchmaking service. Different traditions, different filters, the same recurring question: who gets to decide, if not the couple? Long before software promised compatibility, Humans were already outsourcing the decision to families, matchmakers, and the stars. Europe was about to try something stranger, separating the longing from the decision entirely. Medieval European nobles found a loophole. If you couldn't choose who you married, you could still choose who you longed for. Courtly love emerged as a literary and aristocratic tradition. Poems, songs, and elaborate declarations of devotion, usually aimed at people the poet was never expected to marry. Marriage was still arranged around land, alliance, and family strategy. Longing lived somewhere else entirely, in verse. Some of this literature treated romantic desire as its own separate category, intense, noble, sometimes tragic, completely disconnected from any real marital plan. Picture a nobleman composing devastating poetry about a woman he will never marry, has barely spoken to, and has built an entire emotional universe around anyway. It's less romantic history and more elaborate medieval fan fiction, performed with a straight face at court. Humanity invented long-distance yearning centuries before texting. Marriage stayed a family transaction, but longing had officially been given its own genre. A few centuries later, some communities tried something far less poetic, managing that longing with actual furniture. Subscribe now to catch the next part as soon as it drops.